Brainwashing isn't easy, but it's absolutely possible, and it's being employed whether we want to acknowledge it or not. So, if we keep ignoring the fact that there are certain companies that are keeping information, we are going to continue to eat garbage, gain weight, and ruin our health while we line the pockets of those companies. I want to share 5 concepts that I've cemented into my brain so that I could lose 80 pounds, and I've kept that weight off for the last 5.5 years. What's kind of weird is that companies have been getting us to brainwash our kids to eating their stuff for years. And I saw when it was happening to me, but luckily my pediatrician, so she's from Africa, she stepped in and let me see what was happening. So when my daughter was very little, like just born, I would say in the first year, I was like really focused on making sure that she ate properly. Well, I was always focused on her eating properly, but I mean that first 2-3 years, like I was really on it. And I would go to my pediatrician and talk about how she didn't want to eat this or she didn't want to eat that, and like be all like complaining. And my pediatrician said something to me. She said, "Violet, this child will not starve herself. So put the healthy food on the plate. If she eats it, it's because she's hungry. If she doesn't eat it, leave her alone. She's not hungry. When she's hungry, she'll come back and eat." My pediatrician telling me that absolutely changed the trajectory of my relationship with my daughter. I remember my upbringing. I did not have that kind of relationship with my mom. And so I'm just happy that that got corrected in my mind as early as it did. I don't need to fight with her to eat food. She'll eat it. And that's huge. And a lot of this is going to make sense as I keep talking. So let me just keep going. Now, I was trying to push fruit on my daughter. That's part of the conversation I had with the pediatrician. And I wasn't even aware that I had been brainwashed as a child about the foods that I was eating. And I'm not trying to throw parents under the bus. We have all been brainwashed. We are just unaware. You see, when we're kids, our body wants to do what's absolutely healthiest. So babies, small children, when they're intaking food, their body is telling them what's good and not good based on what they put in their mouth. And obviously, when I was a small child and my parents put fruits and vegetables in my mouth and I spit them out, what did they do? They kept putting them in my mouth over and over again. But my pediatrician got me to stop doing that with my daughter. So I wasn't forcing her to eat those sweet fruits that she kept spitting out. So I think I need to back up for a second and just explain exactly what brainwashing is. And I want to get this right, so I'm going to read it. Brainwashing is when we make someone adopt a radically different belief by using systematic and often forcible pressure. And part of the reason that I don't believe that we remember being brainwashed is because when this would have been happening to us, we were children, we were babies, we were small, little people. And our parents who take care of us just controlled everything that we were going to do. But the big question is, like, how did the first instance of this actually happen? Because it didn't used to be that, for example, the first things that babies eat is cereal, because we didn't have baby cereal way back in the Wayback Machine. And I want us to think about that, because way back, the elite would have had meat, and it was the peasants who were eating gruel. Oh, by the way, gruel is just another word for cereal. It's grains. No one really wanted to eat grain until Kellogg came along and convinced us that if we eat this cereal, then those urges that were getting a lot of families in trouble, those urges that were causing disease and problems in our society, they would go away. And of course, that was solving a huge problem that we were living, so people were on board with this idea. Here's the problem. Grains are not healthy. At least not healthier for us than animal protein, that's for sure. Animal fat, that's for sure. But actually, which I only learned recently, grains, according to what I read in Sally Norton's book, toxic superfoods, they're actively harming our bodies. So are fruits and vegetables, because they have chemicals, plant chemicals in them that just aren't good for us. And our body has to fight against all these things to try to pull nutrients out. It's a huge, huge problem that I talk about in my interview with Sally that you can check out. I'll link it below. But ultimately, we got pulled into eating something to solve promiscuity that just harmed our bodies. We actually need to eat meat, but grains and vegetation in general is more profitable. So over the years, the profits that companies make from feeding us grain-based carbagey foods have led into like all these different kinds of campaigns to keep convincing us, so brainwashing us, to go against what our body is asking for. Some of them pulling on our heartstrings, like how bad it is for the animals that we're eating them. Although, you know, if I'm in the woods and a bear gets me, or if I'm on the plains of Africa and a lion gets me, those animals are not feeling sorry for having fed themselves. But we're supposed to feel sorry for eating the animals that we eat. Just pointing that out. But I have to say that after hundreds of years of being told over and over that fruits and vegetables and grains are the healthiest things that we can eat, we have been brainwashed into believing that fruits and vegetables need to be in our diet. We need to eat the rainbow. It's not uncommon for me to meet people who are 40 and under who have skin, bowel, and weight issues. And this is all happening because we aren't listening to our body, because our body is screaming that this is not what's healthy for us. So by the time that I was 40, I had come up with a few rules to help me to manage my weight, because I had gained some weight. And those rules actually came about around the time that my daughter turned 4, because before the age of 4, I did not allow her to eat any kind of candy, ice cream, junk food. Was not in her diet plan. Cookies, chips, none of that. She was not allowed to have. But when she turned 4, so she was starting pre-kindergarten, because we have that here in Quebec. So it's school. I figured she's going off to school. She's going to be around other kids. It would be hard for her not to have what they were having. I was wrong, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I said, okay, now she can have this kind of stuff. And what ended up happening was my family all of a sudden started to give her, like at every holiday, Easter, birthday, like name the event, chocolate and candy coming into the house. Because I guess for the first 4 years they weren't able to give her anything. But now I'm trying to manage all this junk coming into my house. Keep in mind, because my daughter hadn't been eating sweet things up to this point, she didn't care. So she wasn't eating the stuff. I should have just thrown them away. But at some point I realized that I was eating the chocolates that were coming in, and I made a rule for myself that said, if it came into the house for my daughter, I'm not allowed to eat it. And so if she didn't eat it, yes, I was actually ending up throwing that stuff away into the garbage. I didn't eat the candy because candy tends to make my mouth like hurt. Something that should have been a big red flag for me in terms of all junk food before this, but I didn't learn from that, my body telling me don't eat that stuff. Anyway, fast forward when I was in my 40s, like 46 actually, my weight is high. My health is poor, like my joints are killing me, and now I'm limping. After doing a little bit of research, I learned that the pain that I was living, so the hip pain and the joint pain, the inflammation problem that I figured out that I had was being caused by the sugar that I was eating. Now, because I understood that mindset was the most important factor in keeping myself, or just making big changes in life, I had used mindset, right? So that rule I had about don't eat it, if it belongs to my daughter, that was a mindset shift that I had made. I looked to myself to say, okay, what am I going to do? So how am I going to change my mind? And this is where I started to brainwash myself, because I had to adopt some radically different ideas about how I was going to live my life if I was going to solve this sugar, inflammation, carbohydrate problem that I just found out was causing all this pain and weight. Well, I didn't know I wasn't even looking to solve the weight, but the pain that was going on in my body. It sounds really dramatic what I'm saying right now, but my daughter was 13 and I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to walk in a year or two from the date when I started to do the research of what's happening to me. It was that painful. And the first thing that I radically changed in my brain was the idea that sugar is what was healthier to eat. So when you look at sugar and fat and you're looking at what's healthier to put into your body. So I was learning that I needed to decrease the amount of sugar that I was eating, but I was being encouraged that the amount of fat on my plate wasn't the problem. That was exactly opposite of everything I'd ever thought ever in my life. But I was in so much pain, I was willing to try just about it. So again, there was a huge situation happening in my life and I was backed up against a wall. And I was put in the position that I either trust this information or keep living in pain. This situation needed to stop. And I was looking at it from the perspective of I'm willing to do whatever to make this pain go away. And that allowed me to say, sugar's evil, fat is good. Let's move forward and see what happens. I have to admit, it was easier to accept that sugar was bad when my hip pain was gone within 3 months. But it was even easier when I noticed that my shoulder pain, my elbow pain, my knee pain, my back pain, like all the joint pains that I'd been living with from the time I was 23. And remember, I found this solution when I was 46. That's 23 years. Gone. Because I took sugar out of my life. But what sealed the deal for me was when by 5 months later, I had actually lost more than 70. I would even say probably more than 80 pounds, but let's just say 80 pounds-ish. Just by taking sugar out of my, down to 20 grams of carbs per day. And to be fair, I don't even think that by the time my joint pain had gone away, that I was consistently doing 20. That only came a few weeks after that. It was amazing. It blew my mind, Wellness Warrior, that sugar was messing with me the way that it was messing with me, and I didn't know. On the keto lifestyle, which is what I was doing, you still eat vegetables, right? You're having meat and vegetables. And I was not a fan of vegetables. Letting go of the fruit wasn't hard because I didn't really like fruit, and keeping the vegetables in my diet was the harder part because I actually disliked vegetables. Like when I would talk about eating vegetables before I did keto, it was usually French fries or carrots. And I didn't even like carrots. So really, honestly, it was French fries. So here I am now eating all these vegetables that I don't like. So I'm cooking them all the time, right? I started this whole thing listening to Dr. Berg with that 7 cups of salad and vegetables that you're supposed to have per day. So I can tell you honestly that when I learned from other doctors that in fact you don't need to eat any vegetation at all, that was the happiest piece of information that I had ever had. Understanding that vegetation, so vegetables are not healthy, I don't have to eat them. Again, a new piece of information that as I started to weave it into my mind, I realized that I could actually diminish to the point where on a daily basis, mostly what I was eating was meat, fish, eggs, poultry, with a little bit of veg. Eventually that became a little bit of veg a few times a week, to eventually it became a little bit of veg once in a while, until 6 months ago. Well, maybe it's not 6 months yet, but I stopped eating veg altogether. Happy days. Having permission to put down cooking vegetables, which is just one more thing for me I don't like to cook. I don't like being in the kitchen. That was just one more thing for me to have to do. Oh my goodness, having vegetables in the fridge that I end up throwing in the garbage because I don't end up cooking them, and then I'm wasting money. I'm wasting food. You call that food, but whatever. I'm wasteful, and I don't like being wasteful. So that led me to this other piece of information that I had to kind of weave into my mind, which was this. Every once in a while, Pat would cook some veg because I had stopped cooking it now. And it'd be something that is fine for a keto lifestyle, so I would have some. And then my body would react violently. And I had this unfortunate thought process happening, which was saying that, oh, I'm fit now and I should be able to eat these things, not realizing that my body was still saying, this is not food. Or at least not for you, Violet. This is not food. And I really had a hard time putting it in my mind that because I'm thin now doesn't mean that my body is healed. So I would eat these things and I would still have an inflammation reaction. I would eat these things and maybe I was also having an insulin reaction. And I had to really pause what I was thinking, back up and look at that and say that it's not because I weigh what the chart at the doctor's office says I'm supposed to weigh, that it means that my body has actually fully healed. As clearly it hasn't. Because every time I eat these things, I'm having a huge reaction. Most of the time when you do some kind of elimination diet, the idea is that you're going to pull some foods back in and you're going to have a nice new baseline of what your body can manage. But what we don't stop and consider is that by the time that we're so ill that we're doing this elimination diet, we've lived years of damaging our body. If it took years of damage to get to the point where maybe I need to do an elimination diet to figure this out, could it possibly mean that it's going to take years before my body heals? That is what I needed to actually allow myself to understand. Being thin does not equal now Violet is healthy. The same way that we have heard of people who become diabetic and they're thin, right? They're thin on the outside, but their body is fat on the inside, right? And I never really fully understood what that meant until I started living it myself. My body was still reacting to food because I still have healing to do. That also made me stop and think about the actual food that I was eating. Food is central, but I had it wrong. And what I mean is, so first we have the whole idea that we thought fat was bad and sugar was good. But even more than that, there was this big overarching idea that says that a healthy person can eat plants. And I will agree that a healthy person can tolerate eating plants. But does it mean that a healthy person should be eating plants? So I want you to think about it like this, Wellness Warrior. A healthy person can absolutely drink. But does it mean that a healthy person should stop drinking water and only drink bourbon? No, water is what we're supposed to drink. Why would we switch it out for something that we know is toxic? And I needed to reevaluate what I was actually calling food. We have been taught that fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, these are healthier than animal meats. But we're wrong. Food is meat, fish, poultry, eggs. That is food. Every other thing is vegetation, and that stuff is put on our plate for fun. And now you need to think about, how often am I allowing myself to have fun with the stuff that's supposed to be building the healthy version of me? Well, I can let you know that I don't take that as a joke any longer. I have not had vegetation in the last few months because I finally get it. It's not helping my body to grow and build and rebuild. All it's doing is causing metabolic damage. And why would I want that? When I took the time to add all of this together and realized that sugar was my real problem, that all vegetation is sugar, that's how we make it, that weight is not as important as being healthy, and that it's the actual food that you eat that determines whether or not you're healthy, I had a huge aha moment. Because what I all of a sudden understood to be the reality for my life is that I didn't want to be thin. I wanted to be healthy. So I changed my goal from trying to maintain my weight to trying to stay healthy for the rest of my life. And you know what the huge important thing about that is? Because that's my goal, the foods that I eat will never go back to being garbage. Because as soon as I start eating garbage, I'm damaging my body. Running around with my daughter when she was 13 and all my pain problems started, to being able to keep up with her now that she's 19, that's what actually makes me happy. Kyler is the reason that I appreciate my healthy body today. She's the reason that I'm so excited about eating properly, because I know that it allows us to keep riding our bikes and scooters and longboards and ski and climb and all the things that we love doing together, because I can actually keep up. I used to live my life just trying to get by, as a matter of fact, I had it in my head, I'm going to use my body to the fullest. I'm going to push. I'm going to do everything now when I'm young, because by 23, I was starting to feel that pain. I'm like, I'm going to get to a point where I can't do stuff anymore. And I was trying to just eke out the most I could out of my body before it stopped working. And around 46, it was actually slowing me down to the point, well, it stopped working. I didn't ski that season. I didn't ride my longboard that first summer. I wasn't able. Arthritis, or whatever you want to call what was going on in my joints, had set in, and I was so worried that diabetes was around the corner. And I used to get mad at myself because I would eat the stuff that I knew was going to raise my weight, right? And I would eat it even when I was trying to lose weight, and that would make me angry. And then I would give up. That would make me angry, but I'm still eating the stuff. I would look at my daughter and realize that we're not going to get to do fun things together because I don't feel good. That would make me angry. You don't understand how I was angry at myself all the time for the weight, for the pain, for the belief that I'm just not strong enough to not eat the junk food, not realizing that the rice, pasta, potatoes that I was eating when I was being good was still contributing to the problem. And today, I understand that my pain was by design. And I've stopped blaming myself. Companies put us in this position because they benefit from us eating this way. And I'm talking about all the companies, the food companies, the pharma companies, the medical, all connected companies, the diet industries, the nutritionists, they all benefit from us eating this way. I didn't cause this problem, Wellness Warrior, but I did solve it for myself, and I'm trying to help you to solve it. I have a video that I'm going to link below that you can watch to help you to fully better understand this problem that we're living today, because if you don't understand it, you're not going to be able to change it. Wellness Warrior, I would like to know which of these 6 ideas stood out the most to you. Which one do you think you need to implant in your brain right now to change the way that you're going to interact with food moving forward? Put it in the comments. Let's talk about it, because I make these videos so that you improve your health, so that you get to enjoy your body and live the life you want to live. If there's something more that I can do, please let me know.